I think the playoff series that I'm most interested in, and I know the Clippers Nuggets is really like fascinating for a number of reasons, but the one I'm actually most interested in is Minnesota and the Lakers.
Okay.
And the reason for that is I feel like both of those teams cause each other some pretty real problems in some way, shape, or form, where like the Lakers don't have a great guy to guard Anthony Edwards to me. They also don't have a ton of size on the interior. And now they're playing this team in Minnesota that can like load up and really try and attack the glass and get second chances and play the possession game. Right. But then on the other side, you have this Lakers team that is really well built to play like an aggressive style of defense that can potentially neuter Anthony Edwards in some way, shape, or form by just taking the ball out of his hands and forcing other guys on Minnesota to beat them. And then also potentially on offense, playing Rudy Gobert off of the court and thus mitigating the size advantage that they have that way. Where do you kind of fall on where all of this is going to go within this series?
I think the first thing that my mind goes to is what you mentioned a little bit towards the end, which is LA taking the ball out of Anthony Edwards' hands. Like, to me, that is fascinating. And this kind of plays into the defense that JJ went to at one point, right? Which was, we're going to scramble. We're going to run around. We're going to take anybody that we don't believe is a volume good 3-point shooter, and we're going to let that guy shoot. Now, you have to identify those guys on Minnesota. Who are those guys? Because you know what Minnesota is, Sam? A really good 3-point shooting team. They are top 4 in the NBA in percentage. They are 6th in 3-point attempt rate. So is it going to be Julius Randle? Are you going to say, hey, we're going to let him shoot threes? Is it Jaden McDaniels, who I think has been a little bit disappointing on the offensive end this year? But the other thing is, like, if you're going to let Julius catch, I think Julius is at his best whenever he gets to make decisions and be aggressive and attack out of that. Now, Ant has to make those decisions as well when he gets to put on him. I wonder if Minnesota would be okay, and then they could go small. They could take Rudy off the floor. You know who's coming on the court now? Naz Reid, who can also shoot and finish those plays. So I think that'll be interesting. And then I wonder if Minnesota, how do you feel about their perimeter matchups in terms of, Jaden McDaniels being able to take the Luka matchup, Anthony Edwards being able to take the Austin Reeves matchup, being able to come in and take, but then who do you put Conley on whenever he's on the floor with because this is the thing you mentioned with the Lakers. They are small at center, but they are big across the board. So if you want to play somebody small, it's going to be tough for you to find the right matchup for that player.
I think that it basically has to be Conley on Finney-Smith when he's on the court. But this does not feel like a series for Mike Conley to me. This feels like much more of a series for all of the other, Timberwolves players and shooters.
Vincenzo. Yep.
Right. And particularly what stands out to me in terms of that 3-point shooting, right? If you go since February 1st, right? So the Wolves have obviously been incredibly hot this year. They've played, really, really high level basketball. But if you look since February 1st, it feels like their shooters have been, quite hot from 3, where like Julius Randle is drilling 40% from 3 in that time. Dante DiVincenzo's at 45% from 3 in that time. Nickeil Alexander Walker is at his normal 35. And then Mike Conley is hitting at 45. And oh, by the way, like Jalen Clark will come in and he'll hit 44% of his like occasional threes that he puts up, right? So the shooting is kind of the key to me here. Can they just consistently knock down shots? If you're going to put 2 on the ball against Anthony Edwards, when you get the open shot, when Los Angeles is scrambling and closing out on you, can you make the 3? This is a team that consistently over the course of the last 2 months has made the 3s, right? 2.5 months. Like, they've knocked down those shots, and it's a big reason why they've been successful. Now, the defensive end for Minnesota is interesting for me, because to me, the Lakers are the exact kind of team that neutralizes what Minnesota wants to do defensively, because they're going to play smaller. They're going to have, I would guess, Rudy have to guard Rui.
Yeah.
And Rui has become like a very real 3-point shooter, as we've talked about throughout the course of the year. He's hitting 41% of his threes. Dorian Finney-Smith is hitting 40% of his threes with the Lakers. And then you obviously have LeBron, Luka, and Austin Reeves, and all those dudes are just absolutely flaming from three as well. So it's going to be hard, I think, at times to keep Rudy on the court unless one of those guys, particularly Rui or Dorian Finney-Smith, does not get hot from three or just goes like ice cold from three in some way, shape, or form. Now, the matchup that is interesting is like Gabe Vincent has played obviously like a huge role for the Lakers down the stretch. I would imagine that's probably the matchup that the Timberwolves want Rudy on from time to time. And I do think that like having Gabe Vincent as a body to be able to throw at Anthony Edwards, not all the time because he has like a real size disadvantage, but some of the time will be valuable for them. But I feel like the way that the Lakers match up with Ant is simply trying to get the ball out of his hands by blitzing ball screens and blitzing him. And that almost like negates the need for a single player to match up with him because he's kind of alone as a creator on this team. And then on the other side of the court, you have three creators in Luka, LeBron, and Reeves to where you're able to kind of mix and match, and whoever has the easier matchup, that's where you can attack. You asked me, and this is where you left it, and I kind of filibustered and rambled for a minute, who the matchups are for Minnesota. I've never liked the way that Jaden McDaniels deals with Luka. I think Luka's just too big for him and too strong for him, and he's just kind of able to get to his spots where and when he wants. I would go probably Jaden McDaniels on Reeves and try to neutralize Reeves in some way, shape, or form. I think I would go Ant on Luka, and then I would go Randall on LeBron. And that's not great. It's not like an awesome matchup. It's not a great set of matchups for them, in my opinion. But I just don't know that they have a great set of matchups either. And then when Nikhil comes on, Nikhil can come on and take Austin Reeves, and then you slide Jaden McDaniels over to Luka, and then you still have to figure out the LeBron matchup in some way, shape, or form. And Jalen Clark gives them, some, ability to try and mix and match as well. But it just feels hard if Rudy might not be able to stay on the court because they're going to play 5 out. And if Rudy is on the court when you're playing 5 out, the problem isn't really the defense. It is truly like the offense to me, because you're not going to be able to play 3 for 2 with Rudy out there. The way that the Timberwolves like almost win, and I swear I'll throw it back to you in a second, is the one thing that Rui kind of struggles with to me is kind of dealing with like physicality. If there's a way for them to try and get like Randall matched up on Rui and just like try to bury him on the block, or if there's a way where like Rudy is just like going to, go up and catch deep and like lay it up over the top of Rui, I think that's a way to like potentially neutralize it. I just don't know that I trust the Timberwolves to be able to get to those matchups consistently, I guess.
Yeah, no, I think he could have an advantage in the lane. It's just, are they willing to play through it, play to it consistently?
And can Ant make the right decision with that?
Correct.
Too?
Ant has to make the right decision, and then whoever Ant throws the ball to, whether it's Julius, whoever, then they have to make the right decision. But if I had to guess, I think the Lakers will say, Jaden McDaniels, you make a bunch of threes. You shoot 8, 9, 10 threes a game, even if they're from the corner, and let's see if you're going to make them. And I think they'll let it play out. Like
Rudy shots at the basket. Rudy hook shots. Rudy,
non-dunk. Rudy non-dunk. So like we're going in, and our scout is Rudy doesn't dunk the ball. Jaden McDaniels doesn't get, make him make catch and shoots. Ant has to, we take the ball out of his hands. And like you say, that's how you negate the fact that you don't really have a great defender. Not that a lot of people do for Anthony Edwards. Some teams do. He's just that type of player. What you said on the other end is what I would find the most fascinating, because I've said, I think Anthony Edwards could be one of the best two-way players in this league. We know he's one of the best offensive players in this league. I think at the point of attack defensively, Anthony Edwards has insane upside and ability. putting him on Luka for long stretches of a playoff series is something I'm here for. I would love to see that. You have to be careful with foul trouble, right? Because we know Luka can draw fouls. But if there's someone on that team, I think you're right. Physically, I haven't loved Jaden McDaniel's defense all year, Sam. Maybe I'm off there. Not that it's been bad. I just don't think it's like, we haven't talked about him as an all defense.
We expect him to be an all defense guy. Yeah, he hasn't been that.
He hasn't been that. And so I think that would be really fascinating to see if Ant can just dominate. Can Anthony Edwards be the best player in the series on both ends of the floor? And that's not an easy task whenever you're playing the Lakers with Luka and LeBron. This one will be fun. This was a good one to lead off with.
Yeah. And this is also the big question here. So how do you feel about Minnesota doing their own version of small ball with Naz Reid and Julius Randle? I just think it's less effective than the Lakers version of small ball because that allows the Lakers to just switch everything and be completely like, they're going to be completely fine with switching everything if they want to. And then just like throwing occasional blitzes at Anthony Edwards, right? They'll go 2 on the ball, force Ant to be able to make decisions. And then when you go Naz and Julius, again, it just kind of becomes like a 3-point shoot-a-thon then, right? And maybe Minnesota gets hot for a couple games and knocks down shots, but I think that the Lakers probably hold the advantage there when that happens. I will say, like, I do think that the Nuggets are probably the hardest matchup for the Lakers in the first round. I think that this is one of the harder matchups because the Timberwolves do at least like pose things for the Lakers that will be difficult to deal with. But, it's just going to be tricky, I think. I think this is going to be a really, really difficult spot for Minnesota. And, I would go Lakers in 6 probably here. I feel pretty good about Los Angeles in this series. But I do think that there are some, difficult things here. And I think Scott Schmitz brings up a good point too. Like Ant did go nuts against like Oklahoma City last year. And then I forget Phoenix in the first round as well. And neither of those teams had rim protection. And I think that is a key. Ant is going to be able to get to the lane in this series. I think like somewhat effectively, especially if the Lakers do decide to switch a decent amount. But I just don't know that it's enough for me either.
Well, that's what I was going to say is this is all assuming the Lakers can keep him contained even when throwing 2 at him, right? I mean, so depending on who you're throwing at him in that situation, he breaks that. And then now you're playing 5 on 3 and you're really in trouble. So I think that that's probably the scheme the Lakers have to use and then they have to execute it. I would love to see Minnesota counter that by saying, hey, we are going to, Rudy's the biggest player on the floor on the back line of your defense. We're going to throw him lobs. He's going to catch and finish. He's going to clean up every offensive. See if you can, like, what I would love is, can you play Jackson Hayes onto the floor, Sam? You know what I mean? Like we talk about Rudy getting played off the floor. Can Minnesota strategically make Rudy so good offensively, so impactful offensively, keep him impactful defensively somehow? Maybe you mix in some zones or something that they say, JJ says, you know what? We got to put Jackson Hayes on the court because he is just destroying us with his size. I don't know if it can be done. It would be interesting if they could.
So here'd be my other question for you. And I think we can end on this one. When the Timberwolves play Naz and Randall, and then they play like Dante, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Mike Conley, like some combination of that trio, let's say, right? Who do you send the double from? Probably Alexander Walker, right?
Oh,
and that's it's not great, right?
No, this would be that's where I think when Naz comes on the floor, it gets interesting because Conley knocks down shots and is a great decision maker. Naz been making shots and I think will make good decisions. Naz can knock down shots. Yeah, that's a tough lineup to throw 2 on the ball, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. So I think that lineup against the Lakers small lineup is probably the one that's going to tell the tale of the series. How that lineup and how Ant makes decisions against that lineup in order to find the open shots. That's going to be the key to the series to me.
And then can that lineup hold up defensively, right? We've seen Nas.
Yes.
Wasn't it the Nuggets series last year where it was like Nas all of a sudden was awesome defensively or something for a series? Can Julius hold up a little bit better defensively? You know, like can that lineup guard the Lakers at all? Or to your point, are you just playing offense versus offense where the Lakers still have Luka, LeBron, Austin Reeves, and a couple shooters on the other end as well?
Yeah, I agree. I'll take the Lakers in 6 here, but there are things that Minnesota presents that can cause them problems to me.
I'm with you. I would take the Lakers in the series as well, but if they can find a way to keep Rudy on the court, and if Ant can be the best two-way player in the series, I think Minnesota absolutely has a chance to knock them off.
Yeah, and shout out to Shabugan for the super chat. After watching Minnesota over the last month, do you trust Chris Finch when the lights get brighter? I don't. Their execution's been poor. Look, we've seen Finch do it in the playoffs, though. Like, I understand complaints about this, like, lately, but, you know, it's not like Chris Finch wasn't their coach last year when they got to the Final Four, basically, of the NBA. So, yeah, I think that'll be fine.